And that was the opening Grand Prix of the 2010 season, and the helicopter shot that you just showed you the beautiful Formula One paddock, and we're in the middle of there at the moment with the palm trees behind us. Well, it's sort of like first day back at school, isn't it? Let's rate how you two did today. What do you think? Were you more of a Hispania racing or perhaps a Ferrari performance from you today, Eddie? What do you reckon?
Well, first day back at school, bit like Michael Schumacher, pretty rusty.
Best moment?
The highlights really was, I like to see Lotus, what they did, finishing, that was a big effort. And the sad part was Vettel not winning, I think, because he deserved to. He was very quick, and a lot of teams there will be scratching their heads tonight over Vettel's speed. The
highlight for me was you thinking that Rob Smedley came from Yorkshire.
Well, he did have me over there, didn't he, like a good guy?
Well,
I could never understand him when he was at Jordan anyway, so when he told me he came from Yorkshire, I thought Yorkshire was Middlesbrough. Anyway, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's important that I wanted to hear how
if you're from Yorkshire, it does matter.
I know, but Yorkshire's not part of England, you know. It's a separate country up there.
Well, we know where you're from. Tell us how you thought today went. Enjoy it?
Yeah, absolutely. A wee bit rusty. I think I just said in the main feed there that, this new formula without pit stops. Of course, what I meant was without refuelling. So if the audience can bear with us whilst we get ourselves up to speed with the new regulations.
We'll take a bit of time. It's just worth letting you know that, of course, you can drop us emails. We'd love to hear from you all. f1@bbc.co.uk is our email address. We're going to be here on the Formula One forum for the next little while. What would you like people to get in touch about? What do you want to hear them talk about today?
I'd like to hear about the new rules. I think are people genuinely interested in the refuelling situation or the lack of refuelling? Because today was topsy-turvy. There was a lull in the middle of the race that I thought we don't really need to see that, because people's attention will wane. And what we need to do is to make sure that there's a fight going from the very beginning till the very end.
Well, I think there was a fight from beginning to end, because obviously the race is not over, it's on the checker. But I think that what we were seeing in the past is that a lot of the middle of the race was filled up with, normally they were doing 2 pit stops and with obviously the refueling and in some cases you'd see little flash fires and things like that. But I think we need to give this formula some time, and I think a lot lies in the hands of Bridgestone, because if they bring tyres which can easily do 1 stop, then that's exactly what we're going to see, because that's the quickest strategy. So maybe what Bridgestone have to say is, right, we're going to go a bit more racy, a bit more marginal on the tyre, and force us into a situation where we're going to see 2 stops to win the race. OK, there you go. Tyres, the new system. What do you think of it? We'd love to hear from you. f1@bbc.co.uk. Now, it wouldn't be the F1 forum without Martin Brundle appearing at some point and eating an ice cream. And we'll be doing just that, sitting down with Martin and a few other guests who are no doubt are going to come and join us and just chewing the fat for the next couple of hours. So we're going to make our way over here, take a seat and get ready for you, while you guys just have a look at the highlights from today's Grand Prix. Take a look.
Vettel is on the right-hand side of your picture. Then Massa, Alonso just behind. Hamilton behind Massa, Rosberg, then Webber. We wait, and we're away now in 2010. 4 world champions, and we are underway down towards that first corner. Lewis Hamilton makes a move, but it's Vettel from Massa, from Alonso. With a move up there by Michael Schumacher, who seems to have got ahead. There was a problem there. Is it from Mark Webber? Mark Webber, there's all sorts of flue smoke coming out of the rear of his car.
Contact at the back, cars across the gravel, all going off at the back end of the field. Whether it's the Red Bull overfilled with oil or whether he's actually blown the right bank of that V8.
Michael Schumacher's benefited. Nico Rosberg gained as well.
And whoever spun at the back appears to, it's now clear. The Chandok's car's been off, obviously.
Chandok has lasted barely 2 laps. Out at the front, look at that. My word, Vettel has just gone a second faster than Fernando Alonso. He's now more than 5 seconds clear at the top.
Well, the Ferrari tyres are just falling away, because I think when these tyres do degrade to a certain point, they fall off the edge of a cliff and you'll lose 1.5 to 2 seconds per lap. It hasn't happened to Sebastian Vettel. The Ferraris look as if they might just have hit that point, although their first sector time is okay.
You see those cars which have stopped. Kubica has set the fastest time for the first sector, and Alguersuari just set the fastest time of anybody in the second sector. Big pink numbers coming up on the timing screens, which are visible to all those on the pit wall crews, so you can immediately see the advantage. If you've got an open road, fresh rubber, the car lighter, you'll obviously go faster. It could be as much as 2 seconds.
And to confirm that, Jonathan, the Kubica then, a 2:01.3, easily the fastest lap of the race. So a fresh shed of the harder tyres is perfect now.
Here's Hamilton. Hamilton is coming in. Schumacher coming in as well. So this is the first of the cars at the front of the grid now coming in, and Mercedes are covering McLaren.
Quick stop there then.
Likewise Schumacher as well. Didn't quite get a shot there of the wonderful front jack which Mercedes have got, which swivels away.
Where they're going to feed in is critical. Have they found their drivers some clear air? Looks like they have. Will they also pit then Rosberg in the sister Mercedes? I think they'll have to, otherwise the next thing is he's behind not only Hamilton but Schumacher as well.
Well, here's Alonso. Let's keep an eye on this then. So Alonso stopping. He's been 8 seconds down on Vettel.
Red Bull will have to react to that next time around.
Here comes Rosberg. So lap 16, things are really starting to move.
Super important to stop on your marks now in such a short pit stop. And they had to hold him.
Here they come now.
They had to hold him with Button coming through the picture.
Late to that 55-metre safe release area. Away goes Button.
Well, ironically, I think Button coming through the picture might put Hamilton ahead of Rosberg. Where are they? They are indeed.
There is Hamilton. Rosberg is just ahead of Michael Schumacher. They're climbing up the hill now towards turn 4, and the gap has transformed. Here, let's hear from Sebastian Vettel.
It's focus. There's a lot of power.
Understood.
A loss of power there, and the engine note as he went along the pit straight didn't sound good either. So Sebastian Vettel struggling. So seemingly engine problems taking its toll on both Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel. But for how much longer can he hold out then, as the mechanics sit there anxiously?
It's a much shorter straight, of course. Does Alonso really want to be in all that heat? But look, he's just easily pulling him in. And Massa then just watching this all unfold. So the Red Bull's handling beautifully. It's just getting, remember last year they had a lot of reliability issues, didn't they, with the Renault engine. I think he'll be a sitting target on the pit straight. And then Alonso will have the clear air that he craves to cool that Ferrari down. Yeah, I think it's got an exhaust broken or something like that. He's going to drive clean past him.
Alonso's through and past Vettel, and how much longer will it take for Massa to move through as well? They enjoyed that in the Ferrari garage. So Alonso didn't start on the front row, but he may be on the top stop of that podium. Massa's closing as well. Could well be a Ferrari 1-2. There goes Massa on the inside of Vettel, and he's absolutely powerless. The man who started from pole.
Next up is Hamilton's in third, he's just 9 seconds behind. Hamilton's been flying since he got that position away from Rosberg, so he's in a very comfortable fourth and actually only 10 seconds off the lead now, and so Hamilton fourth place, but these guys are all carrying, they're all limping to an extent, to a varying degree, but the Ferraris now can turn back the revs and turn back the fuel a little bit and just coax those home, but Hamilton might not let them have that amount of freedom.
Because he's lapping more than 2 seconds faster than the front 3 cars.
And this is Massa doing the same deal down into turn 1. So then about a second and a bit off the lead. The Ferrari boys appreciating that one.
Lewis Hamilton can see Sebastian Vettel, will know there's a problem, because 2 Ferraris were in between him and the race leader. And now he has a sniff of a podium.
There we go.
Here comes Lewis Hamilton then, down the pit straight and past Sebastian Vettel. So from first to second to third and now to fourth for Sebastian Vettel. It all started in sunshine, but there are lengthening shadows over the Red Bull team. And here comes Fernando Alonso, down towards the final corners. It's his first race for Ferrari, and he's a winner in Bahrain. Fernando Alonso wins for the first time in 2010, and the team who seemed to get it all wrong last year start as a prancing horse should in the new year. Fernando Alonso wins, and Felipe Massa, for the first time back racing after his accident last year, comes in second. It's a 1-2 for Ferrari.
Well, congratulations to Fernando Alonso. There he is, holding the trophy aloft. He wins the first race of 2010. A return to form for the prancing horse, a return to victory for a man who hasn't picked up a win since Japan in 2008. and he celebrates like a winner. But Felipe Massa will certainly feel like a winner as well tonight. Remember what he went through last year, that nasty accident in Hungary, and joining them on the podium, Lewis Hamilton. And we're joined by Lewis's teammate now. Jensen Button has joined us, the defending Formula One world champion. How was that for you?
It was okay. I mean, it's very difficult here because you can't overtake. And the start of the race, I was conserving tyres, which I thought, was a good thing. And, towards the end of the first stint, I started pushing, and I got straight onto the back of Webber and Michael. When we pitted, I jumped Webber, which was great. But after that, basically, it was catching Michael, and then I was stuck behind him, and I couldn't overtake, which is a bit frustrating. But the team have done a great job. The pit stops were phenomenal, and Lewis has done a great job. He's got on the podium, and I think we've shown that our race pace is definitely better than qualifying.
We've been talking a little bit about trying to understand this new formula without refueling. As we walked back after the race, I saw Robert Kubica lying down, looking like he's been in a bath. He's completely drenched. So obviously he had a hard race. Physically, you don't look too bad. So can you kind of talk us through this new formula?
It's a lot easier, to be fair, because you're not able to drive flat out every lap because you do have to look after the tyres, fuel load a little bit, the brakes. So it's not as hard. And I like it when it's hard. I like a bit of pain, but yeah.
Is it a kind of driving that you enjoy? They're being told to conserve tyres, or use the spare capacity that David talks about a lot to outthink other drivers out there?
I think we all love driving flat out. That's what we're bred to do. Race flat out. But it's a different idea, different concept, and it's also quite exciting. I thought at the start of the race that I was looking after my tyres well. If we had to go to lap 25 because there wasn't a gap to fall into, for all of the front runners, I think I would have been looking in much better shape than the people in front. The last two laps when I actually pushed on my softer tyres, I caught up Webber. I saw him sliding around at the rear and Michael. So I was in good shape, but then we pitted. So, I think I was a little bit conservative. But we're all learning, really, the new regulations.
Well, you started 8th on the grid for this particular Grand Prix, and this is your first start as a Formula One world champion. Talk us through it from your perspective.
It's my second one, actually. But everything's pretty normal, It was quite slippery on the inside, but as you can see, start pulling him back in. We got very good straight line speed, and it was exactly the same. It's no real difference with the high fuel load. We've all run sort of 90 kilos. Webber was throwing out a bit of smoke. I thought that was his engine gone, but I think they're just overfilling it with oil. I hope that the footage is going to stop before we get to lap 7, because
I'm sure it will. We're not going to go all the way to lap 7, I don't think.
Sorry, corner 7. Lewis ran a bit wide there, lost a couple of places, and I was very cautious down here because we've been hitting the floor a lot, and Webber went round the outside here, through here, as you can see. So.
Jensen, how is that? I've never driven with that amount of fuel on board, so are you really, really conscious of having to get on the brakes early?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It really is not too bad. Surprisingly, I thought it was going to be a lot worse. But the problem is for us, especially when it's bumpy, we're hitting the ground a lot. Some cars are worse than others. It's an area that we need to work on, so we have to be a little bit cautious for that. But with the fuel load, it's fine. It's not a problem at all.
Jensen, the emphasis has changed dramatically in terms of the race strategy, because it now reverts back to how good you qualify. Qualifying is probably hugely important, as it always was, but much more so now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, everyone's got the same information in the race, so they can all see the big gaps appearing in the traffic behind us, because that's basically what you're doing. You're seeing if, when you stop, you fall into a clean gap, a nice clear gap. Sort of lap 15 was the preferred lap to stop on there, if you could have a clear lap. Stop on that lap, you pull 2 seconds on someone that stops the lap later. So it is a lot more down to qualifying. We didn't see any overtaking really in the race once we got going. Lewis got past Sebastian, and so did the 2 Ferraris, but I think that's because he had his exhaust problem.
Everybody was quite polite going down to the first corner in the great unknown of how would these things slow down with 160 kilos of gas, but it seems to me now that for the next races, it's just going to have to be banzai, isn't it? That first few corners is your best chance.
The first lap, yeah, definitely is your best chance of overtaking. It might throw a few things up in the race, with different strategies. I hope it does, because, if we run like that every race, it's not the most exciting. So I'm hoping that there'll be different strategies when we get to Melbourne.
We saw with, I think if Kubica, they were swimming against the tide a little bit, Kubica and Sutil, but because they ended up pointing the wrong way in the first corner, they were pretty quick towards the end. Sutil's last lap was a 1:59. He was quicker than everybody in the race.
He was on
at
options.
Point. Yeah, but it came to him, didn't it? And so I think we probably haven't seen the best. But do you think we might be seeing these early one-stop races for the rest of the year?
I think if we have safety cars, it's going to mix it up a little bit, because I think some people will risk going into the pits on lap 5, sticking on another set of tyres and running the whole race, because it does look like the tyres are lasting. And, I did 35-odd laps on a set of tyres, and it's a lot.
So let's take a quick look at actually one of Jensen's pit stops. Let's just take a quick look before we go any further. These boys have been working very hard over the winter to get ready for these super quick stops.
Yeah, I tell you what, you never really know who's going to be quick, but our guys did a fantastic job. Both of our cars jumped someone in the pit stops, and it's fantastic, and it's they've got to get it done so quick with no refueling. So,
and as you're driving off, are you thinking, not bad?
Yeah, I was like, nice job, guys. I wish we had more stops in the race, but yeah.
4.5 seconds.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's good. That's probably the best, I reckon.
I think the best was Vettel 4.0.
All right, okay.
But Jensen, aren't you more worried? You finished 45 seconds behind the Ferraris. Yeah. You're putting a brave face on this, aren't you?
No, because Lewis did a great job in the car, and he finished 24 seconds behind the Ferrari. So it's still a big margin, This is a long circuit, doesn't make any difference. But, I think when we go to different circuits, there'll be different results. The Ferrari is definitely the car to beat. I think the Red Bull is a quick car, but in race trim, it's nowhere near. But the laps at the end, when we had clear laps, was very good, and we could get sort of close to the Ferrari pace. I was just stuck in traffic, but it's my own fault for qualifying where I did.
Jensen, you look very at ease, very happy with yourself. This must be a perfect home for you.
Yeah, I think it is. It's still very early to say, but I've enjoyed the last 3 months. The atmosphere in the team is great, and it feels like I've been here a long time. The only thing that doesn't feel like I've been here a long time is actual time in the car. In testing, you don't get that much time. But I'm happy with the way the car is feeling. There are a few things that I need to work on. I think the car is a good car, but I need to work on to satisfy myself with the car. And I know what we have to do, so it's not a problem. And hopefully we'll get some good running in Melbourne, and we'll be there then.
Thank you so much for finding the time to join us. I know you've got to go and have your debrief with all of your guys and crack on, start working already. So I'll take that off you if you don't mind. Unless you want to take that into the debrief.
My dad will be very proud of you.
No, I've worn it in honour of your dad. In fact, it's one of his old shirts. Thanks a lot. See you later, JB. Take care. Quite a few emails actually coming in for Jensen. Well, not necessarily for Jensen, but for you guys about Jensen. Peter from Burton, I'll give this to you, Eddie. He's emailed in to ask, I'll just make sure he's gone. Do you think Hamilton already has the edge over Button? And that just gives you the kind of an insight into the way that people are thinking at home. They think very quickly things are going to be sorted out in Formula One. This is the first race of what could be a long career between these two. How do you see it playing out?
I don't think so. I think what happened today is what we all expected, and we know. We saw last year and previous years, never rule out Jensen. He's going to be hard. He's very calm. If he was uptight and he mentally didn't believe he could take on Hamilton, he wouldn't have been able to sit there and talk like the way he did. I'm very confident that he knows what's going on.
David?
Yeah, I think that, one race and the whole season, I think we said this in the preview show that we did for the website, that we need to give it a few races for them to become settled. Sorry if you're getting a bit of interference there, or maybe it's just for me. Yeah, and I think that it was a solid practice sessions that we saw Jensen play out in comparison to Lewis. I guess no big surprise that when the big push came in qualifying, Lewis was a bit more comfortable in the car. But at various points in the race, he was quick. But it's not good enough, of course, to just be quick at the end of the race. You've got to be able to pull that off across the whole Grand Prix. So, Jensen, as he was very honest there, he said he's just got to qualify better and the rest will follow.
Well, Jensen's going up against a world champion, of course, and the same can be said about Nico Rosberg. He's taking on the might of Michael Schumacher at Mercedes Grand Prix, and this weekend out-qualified him and out-raced him as well, finishing ahead of the German. Let's hear from Nico Rosberg now.
Nico, just sum your race up for us, please.
Well, in general, I think it was a decent start for us. 5th and 6th in the race is okay. I was a bit concerned by my pace in the race somehow. Just wasn't quick enough, and especially in the first stint on the options, lost out quite a lot, and then lost out to Lewis in the pit stops, which I think we could have tried to avoid somehow. But anyways, I think 5th place is good, and unfortunately I couldn't get Vettel in the end. because just as I came close, my aerodynamics were game over with his turbulences, and then I couldn't overtake him.
It was frustrating to watch, but how frustrating is it from a driver to lose a position in a pit stop, which when you've done all you can, really, it's just the new rules?
Yeah, that was a bit disappointing, because I was pretty sure that I could keep Lewis behind me, and we just need to analyse that maybe we need to anticipate the pit stop, although that might have been, on the other hand, then a bit early, you never know, so we just need to have a look.
Well, Martin, it's going to be some fight for Nico Rosberg with Michael Schumacher. You know what it's like to drive in the same team as the man. How important is it to draw that early 1-0 victory, do you think?
I think psychologically it's very important, but Michael's not in the groove yet. I don't think Michael's delivering what he's capable of. He just seemed to touch behind the car. There was a phase in the race where he started to catch Nico, and he thought, OK, here it comes. Here comes Michael Schumacher's experience and control and strategy. And then he started to fall back. But I've heard from the German crews, as I've been walking over here, that Michael's saying he didn't feel at all tired at the end of the race, because, as Jensen said, it was all about saving tyres, which I find quite an alarming thing to hear the drivers saying, that they weren't flat out the whole race. But so, it's 1-0 to Nico, and it's a clear victory. And I think it says a lot for Nico as much as Michael's struggling.
I think that Michael yesterday revealed quite something very clear anyway to me. He said he was very rusty. You don't have a chance to be rusty at this level, even for one lap, because qualifying is so important. And until Michael, which there is no testing anymore, until he gets up to speed in the qualifying, he's not going to win races. I still think towards the end of the season, but he has to improve his qualifying, and he has to improve his first lap on the new tyres in the race.
Feeling rusty is one thing, David. Making your return to Formula One and admitting you're feeling rusty is something quite different, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's a case of trying to take the pressure off. Take the pressure off himself, and he knew through Friday that his performance was not strong enough, and certainly by the end of Saturday morning, then he would have been sending out those messages. I think that we have to remember that that this is a track that Nico has gone extremely well at in the past, and Michael, even when he was at the peak of his powers in his first time in Formula One, he would occasionally get beaten by Felipe, or would occasionally get beaten by Rubens over qualifying and in races. So, I don't think it's his speed over a single lap that made him such a successful driver. I think it was his ability to deliver close to qualifying lap times repeatedly during a race that delivered all those championships. OK, let's take a look at Michael's first start in Formula One after a 3-year sabbatical and the start of this race. And there was a lot of talk before this about full fuel loads, the same size brakes as last year, and quite a few guys who'd never driven a full car. Yeah, well, that's why I was asking Jensen there, to try and understand exactly just, how do these cars feel when you arrive at the first corner. I would imagine with 160 kilos it would be extremely heavy, but look at Michael in the background. You're just taking a very straight line and straight run down to turn one. That was a conservative start, had a little look up the inside with Mark there, and there you go, slips through when Mark has the problem. So yeah, again, if we were able to see the run down from the start line to the first corner, that was a clear decision from him not to go racy in this first Grand Prix. What do you think, Martin?
Yeah, I don't think Michael will be going home tonight a happy man. I'm sure we'll see him at the party we're heading off to later on, and he'll be there and he'll be all shiny and apparently confident. But I think fundamentally he'll be disappointed with this weekend, and he's not been the happiest bunny walking around the paddock, has he, Michael? He's had a bit of a face on.
And it was particularly testing for Felipe Massa at the start there. He just would have wanted to keep his teammate behind him, but Alonso just snuck through right at the start there. Yeah, that was the animal, the racing animal within Fernando. He just snuck in, as you say, at turn 2, as we saw Kubica and Sutil come together. Anyway, here we're on board with Fernando in the slipstream, getting a little bit of a toe down into turn 1. Hits the brakes, nice clear track as he runs into turn 1, and he's thinking, will I have the space? And look at that, Felipe just leaves him enough room for him to slip through, and that's what racers do. So, I don't know, good behaviour from the both, but I think that Felipe will look at that and wish that he just leant on the left side of the car a bit. And this is a young Nico Hülkenberg, Eddie, and you like your young drivers. This guy has got a lot of expectations on his shoulders, particularly at Williams, hasn't he?
Well, he has, and he's come into this season with a huge expectation. I'm a bit concerned. I don't think he quite did enough for me today. Got himself, in terms of track-wise, in all sorts of difficult positions. maybe he was right in the middle of the mix and it was a difficult scenario for him, but it didn't go up in my estimation today, sadly.
The thing is, those simple rookie mistakes in your first race can be punished by some experienced guys out there, and that is an experienced grid.
He actually did quite well to avoid a major shunt in the first corner, but it all went horribly wrong heading up the hill. That's for sure. And
I wonder if he was just clever enough to realise that he'd passed offline going through turn 2, so he let those two cars pass again, because he was on the inside going into turn 4, and we saw both the Renault and his teammates repass him. So do you think there was an element of actually being a lot smarter than we're giving him credit for?
Well, he may have done, but he didn't need to if he did he? Because, I mean, clearly there was an incident. It wasn't like he passed unfairly. He just simply took to the grass and gravel and made something of it.
And I think, Jake, if I may, I'd like to just go back to the... Do you really think that Felipe Massa is going to give Alonso the same space next time? That was just so gentlemanly. It was...
No, absolutely. I mean, let's just
ridiculous.
talk about this for a moment. Is that just a sort of simple rookie mistake, Martin, do you think? Is that the car slipping out from underneath him?
He's obviously had so many dramas and adventures in the race that he just failed to catch the car. It's been a nightmare first Grand Prix for him, really, in many respects. I mean, you don't expect to be involved in that many incidents, but what can you do?
I think Williams will take some heart from the fact that they've got 4 very fast teams around them, but they seem to be up there picking up the points. But we'll talk about that in just a moment, because Lewis Hamilton has stepped in to join us. Thank you very much for finding the time to do this. Really grateful. Well, congratulations. You pick up a podium, first race of the year.
Yeah, I'm quite happy. I think it was quite an interesting race in terms of learning about the tyres and learning how to manage them, and also the fuel loads. Got held up a bit at the beginning, so I wasn't really able to, I think, show our true pace, especially that first stint, and keep up with the Ferraris. But nevertheless, third place is a great start for us, and we got a lot of work to do to close the gap with them.
Well, let's take a look at the start of the race, actually. You can talk us through this from your perspective.
Well, the start was good. I actually got a real perfect start. It was better than, obviously, I don't know if that's on the left, is that Felipe or Fernando? But it's very tricky here when you go into the first corner. You're looking in your mirrors, just hoping no one hits you from behind. On the left-hand side here, I had Rosberg. I had to be careful of these two here, and obviously Felipe pushing me very wide there. But unfortunately broke a bit too late here. Just couldn't stop the car. And that's really, unfortunately, where I lost major ground. Obviously, Rosberg came past here and had no chance to get back on him because he was just too quick in the mid-sector.
We hadn't actually seen that in-cutter shot at the start of the race, so you actually got a bit of a squeeze from the Ferrari, from Felipe, as you ran down to turn 4. Were you all comfortable with that? You had to drive offline a little bit.
Well, I didn't actually know whether it was Felipe or Fernando. I didn't know which one it was.
Did you presume it was Fernando based on your previous relationship?
No, I didn't know which one it was, but all I know, he was squeezing pretty, but he was being quite competitive, and fortunately he gave me space at the end. I didn't realise how far I was ahead by then, though.
Okay, we can take another look, actually. I mean, this was pretty naughty.
Why is that? Well, you mean this was naughty?
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks in the mirror, he saw me, but it's very aggressive. I mean...
So you saw him see you in the mirror?
Yeah, but, it doesn't matter. I mean...
Jake, are you telling me that Lewis wouldn't do that to him?
Well, Lewis, would you do that to him?
I probably wouldn't risk clashing wheels in that position, but
Yeah, that could have been a 90 right into the barriers, couldn't it? That could have been really nice.
So I wouldn't push that close, but...
How close do you think you could have stayed to the Ferraris without that little drama? Do you think you might have kept them in sight?
I think if I pulled that move off on the outside there, I think I would have been able to keep up with Fernando. I honestly feel that I would have been able to keep up, but it's all about if and when. But we'll just have to wait until the next race. We've got to make a big step, because in the middle sector we're really lacking. What it's like driving the McLaren. We've never really had. At least since I've been here, we've never really had an amazing rear end, and the car's great in the high speed, but not so good in the low and medium speed corners on the rear. So we really need to pick up some downforce there.
We've heard a lot of drivers talking about just how bad it was in the turbulent air, especially when you got heavily used tyres. Is that worse than before?
It's only worse simply because the car's so heavy. And, when you're behind someone like Nico and you're pushing, you're coming out the corners, you're trying to look after your tyres at the same time as try to overtake. So you're perhaps using a little bit more of the tyres than you should be. And also with the oversteer, with the turbulence, you're having more oversteer moments. The degradation was far faster than normal.
Lewis, a lot of people making references to Ferrari being the pace, but in actual fact, Vettel is the pace. Red Bull is the pace. They've got the quick car here. So it's probably erroneous to be talking just about Ferrari. We shouldn't, or if I were you, I'd be thinking about Red Bull.
Of course, Red Bull undoubtedly have, they had the best car at the end of 2009. Obviously Adrian and the whole team have done a great job. They've got an incredible downforce, I think. The mid-sector, they were over 7/10 quicker than us. And even when Sebastian was having troubles at the end, he was still ridiculously quick in that mid-sector. I could see the car was so stable compared to mine.
Well, we can see that moment now. This is you taking him for third place. It would have felt nice, wouldn't it?
Not really, because it wasn't really a fair fight. I was so much quicker down the straight, so I would much rather have, look at this, it's too easy. I would much rather have a bit more downforce and actually challenge him for real,
Staggering to think how slow he was on the straight to the overall lap time. That must be a concern for everybody except the Red Bull people.
I could hear when I was behind him, he wasn't firing on all 8 cylinders, so I was actually a bit nervous, being behind him when it was going to explode. But fortunately, we got past.
Yep, and unfortunately, you've got to head off as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'll take that out of hands. Take care. Thanks very much, Lewis. Good to chat to you. It gives you an idea of these sort of racers' mentality. I would have thought he would have sat and gone, oh, that was lovely, getting a nice free overtake past Sebastian Vettel, and he's like, no, I didn't like that. I want to race the guy properly. It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how relaxed they are with the fact that they've got so much to catch up. It's interesting that he feels that he could have raced with Fernando had he not lost the place at the beginning, but they were a good chunk of a whole second away in qualifying. And then we'll see in the after race analysis just what the average pace difference was. But, they made a big step forward last year, but you can't expect those sorts of improvements every season.
Well, it's not near as bad as it was last year. This is a much better car.
Couple of quick emails, actually. Gerard from Liverpool's emailed in to say good luck to Jensen and Lewis winning another championship. How do you think the title race is looking after that first race? And Peter from Burton's emailed to us, does Jensen expect to have an advantage in future races because he's known for being gentle on his tyres? And I suppose, looking towards the future, Lewis, Jensen, McLaren will take a lot of heart, Martin, from the development that they found and the progress that they had last year.
Well, it's going to be a development race. It's very hot here, unusual circumstances with the sandy conditions. It's a very long lap. I think we're going to see different aspects on a different layout, different temperatures that we'll head to later in the year. But they will have to develop that car. There's no doubt about it. I agree with Eddie. They're a long way behind Red Bull and Ferrari in terms of the downforce and the grip, and that clever little letterbox system they've got to go faster down the straights made no difference at all, did it? So I'm also surprised at how casual and relaxed they are, because they were thrashed today in many respects.
And how surprised are you that once again they haven't necessarily found the downforce that they need to start a season at the front, David? 2 years running.
Well, I don't know if it's as clear as it's not that they don't have the downforce. Apparently the car is one of the longest cars out there. And, that may have an effect in that tight middle section. You typically, as a rule of thumb, you think of a shorter car being more nimble and more able to handle those mechanical turns, where aerodynamically you'll gain stability and also performance with having a longer car. So, one race doesn't make the whole championship. We'll go to Melbourne next, which is a semi-permanent racetrack, so not the best place for us actually to see performance. Yeah. And then we go to Malaysia, which I think is the first of the proper racetracks for us to have a nice balance of high-speed corners, low-speed corners, and then we'll be able to really say, look, this guy's got the quickest car, or, this team's better on its tires. OK, well, one man hoping that by the time we make it to Malaysia, he'll be picking up wins, not picking up just a few little points. Mark Webber's had quite a frustrating weekend, I think. He didn't qualify as high as he would have wanted to. A few issues in the race. We saw the oil smoke flying around at the very start there. Let's hear his thoughts after today's Grand Prix.
Mark, it looked pretty hard work out there. Just sum it up.
Yeah, traffic jam really. Obviously a bit of fight with the two Brauns in turn one, Mercedes as they are these days. And so Michael had the inside for 2. And then after that it was just about trying to work out how we're going to jump then. It's very, very difficult to stay close around this track. And yeah, we got hurt yesterday in quali and managed to get a few points, but obviously not as many as we would have liked. We learnt a lot as a team today, and yeah, it was not the most exciting of Grand Prix following people in the gearbox all afternoon, but yeah, when you've got obviously world-class drivers in front of you, they don't make mistakes. So I tried as hard as I could to make JB and Michael make mistakes, but doesn't happen.
What was all the blue smoke going on at the start from your car?
Not a clue. First I heard of it.
Well, we saw it, didn't we? Let's hear what Christian Horner has to say. I imagine he's probably a little frustrated as well. Here's Christian.
Well, Christian, it's nice of you, nice of Stefano to come down. You did say well done through gritted teeth. It must be pretty frustrating.
Yeah, very annoying. I mean, we really had the race, sort of comfortably under control there. It was very frustrating to either have, I don't know whether it's an exhaust failure or electrical issue that caused a power loss. And Sebastian drove, fantastically well to hold on to that fourth place, which was still valuable points, but desperately frustrating when the race was under control. The strategy had gone well, the stop had gone well. We covered the Ferraris, and he was nursing his tyres.
You've gone with these ambitious exhausts that vent by the side of the gearbox rather than a sort of conventional out the top of the bodywork. Do you think it's too ambitious?
I don't think so. I mean, it's very similar to what we had last year, so we don't at the moment know whether it's exhaust or something different, because the problem was slightly intermittent. So we need to get the car back and understand it.
Okay, thanks, Christian.
Well, quite a few emails coming in about the Red Bull. Kevin McDonaldson says Fernando Alonso is so good he would have won the race without Sebastian Vettel's problems. That's his opinion, but the point is, it is another issue for a Red Bull car, and we saw it enough times last season, reliability costing them points and podiums.
It did cost them the World Championship in the end, but remember when Alonso came up behind Vettel, he had to slow down, he had to cool his car, he was in trouble in that phase of the Grand Prix, so Vettel let him go scot-free. Alonso's pace just after that was very ominous for the rest of them. I mean, he just slaughtered them and pulled away, didn't he, at that point? But I think Vettel would have still won the race. But what this is all saying, listening to Mark Webber, is that a poor qualifying and a poor first half lap, and your weekend's ruined, unfortunately. This is the story that's coming out here.
Well, that's to be endorsed by everybody. There may be something that we have to look at, because we've spoken to Jensen. Qualifying is the key to the weekend, and it never was. It was never emphasised as much before. I just hope it's not going to be the case going forward.
Okay, well, sticking with this Red Bull issue, actually, Ted's been down to the Red Bull garage to take a look at what the problem might be. I think we can actually have a shot now of the car going around and something flying off the car. David, you know these cars pretty well. Talk us through this.
Okay, well, there's a bit of a rumble strip there, and then you see something in the distance. As I sit here, the monitor is 10 feet away from me. Oh, there's a big one right beside me. The wonders of technology. Look at that, there's a huge telly.
So we can see it there on the still frame.
That looks like a piece of carbon, doesn't it? At first I thought it was like a lump of rubber or something like that, but when we actually... if we can move that camera angle a little bit, I'm not able to tell you from that.
Okay, well, Ted's been down to take a look at the car. Let's see what Ted found out.
Well, Jake, we come down to Parc Fermé so we can take a look at exactly what it was about the Red Bull exhaust that cost Sebastian Vettel this race. Now, as you can see, the innovative exhaust that we were talking about, if you just look at that Bridgestone logo and just towards the rear wheels, you can see the oval shape, and that's where the exhaust exits. And obviously you've got lots of hot air that's coming out of there and heating up the floor and the wishbones, but you can actually see where the exhaust has started to fail, and it's on top of that little sort of oval exhaust shape. So you can see the bodywork is missing around the upright and around the little wishbone just forward of the rear tyres. So clearly there's been a hole in the exhaust a bit above that, and all that hot air has just come out and has started burning away at the exhaust. And the team have been down here already, one of the team's top engineering guys, Paul Monaghan, to actually have a look at how much damage it did. Really, it's impressive that it managed to stand up and finish the race and managed to get Sebastian Vettel some points. But I guess it's what's going to happen when you get exhaust so tightly packaged there. Whereas you look at everybody else's cars, you can see on the Mercedes, their exhaust just comes out on a little slit just above the wishbones there, and there's much more area for the exhaust to actually come out there. Although if you have a look, Jake, you can actually see there's been a hole burnt through the back of that Mercedes, and you can see a spring or something coming out of the top of that cover just above where the gearbox would be. So the heat really taking its toll on all the cars here in Bahrain, but that one especially costly for Sebastian Vettel.
Thank you, Ted. As informative as ever. So Ted was impressed that Sebastian Vettel's car managed to keep on going. However, the young man himself certainly wasn't. Just scuffing the grass there, not kicking his car, just scuffing the grass. Right, let's move on, because there's been plenty of emails about the best of the rest at the back of the grid. An email here from Graham in Livingston. He wants to know if Lotus will challenge for points this season. Well, I think Lotus will certainly be delighted with the way that their Formula One resurgence and return has been going. So now we can speak to Mike Gascoigne, who is waiting for us live down by the garages. Mike, congratulations. You said you wanted to get to the finish, and you were the only one of the new teams to do so. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel fantastic. It's a bit strange to be standing here, because the last time I was at a racetrack was in China when I was doing this with you last year, but it's a great result for the whole team.
Right, well, I'm hoping that you picked up some tips in China last year, because it is now Mike Gascoigne, over to you. We can see you there with Tony and both of your drivers. So far away, we'd love to hear what they thought about today.
OK, well, Tony, 6 months since we started this whole project, and you were stupid enough to employ me. How are you feeling?
I'm over the moon. I really couldn't have expected a better day. We always said we'd go for focus and discipline and make sure we get good reliability. Overjoyed 15 to 16. Boys did great. Spirit was fantastic. There was a lovely touch at the beginning. Clive Chapman gave me Colin Chapman's black cap and said, you're the man to carry on the tradition, and when you win your first race, use this cap. We're thrilled, and as I said, the spirit in the pits were fantastic. Mike's done an awesome job. Two boys behind me did a bloody superb job. There were times where we were only a couple of seconds off the pace, so good start. Lots of work to do, but a good start, but we'll enjoy today.
And in 2 races' time, Malaysia, how do you think this is going to go down in Malaysia?
Well, I think, I was receiving so many tweets, so many SMSs. The country's overjoyed that we really excelled where we thought we were going to be. To be ahead of 8 cars and some very established teams after only 6 months of doing this. And I think to add that even the newer teams had a lot of head start, because Manna's established team and Hispania had Dallara making their cars. We had an empty factory in Hingham 5 months ago. So I think Malaysia's very proud, and Norfolk should be proud, and Britain should be proud.
Well, you talked about the twits, you employed some. Here's a couple of them. Hi Keith, well done. How did the race go?
Yeah, it was a very good race for me, and with no problems at all with my car. So I think it's a great effort, like Tony said. And we've proven now that we can run through the race weekend as a professional race team. And in fact, all weekend my car has been running faultless. So I think it's a fantastic effort. And like Tony said this morning to us, that now the 6 months or 5.5 months honeymoon is over, and now the real work starts. And everybody's fired up for that. And I think we've achieved already a lot of respect from the whole paddock. And, we don't need to show any more to anyone now. We can really just focus on improving our package and grow as a team.
Is that a veiled way of telling me I've got to make the car quicker? Yeah, I know. Great. More problems for you this weekend, and difficult at the end of the race there.
Oh, never mind. I mean, we have achieved what we were supposed to achieve. And so far, the team has done an incredible good job, because in 6 months, we have achieved and they have achieved every single target. So I think it's great for the team after 16 years, taking Lotus back on the track and finish with both cars. I think we couldn't ask for more. So we all have to be very happy.
OK, Joe, I think it's time I stopped making a fool of myself here.
Well, I have to say, technical director and TV presenter all rolled into one. We obviously can't pay you as much as Tony can, so I'd suggest you stick with Lotus for now. But I've got 3 friends here that would all love to just have a quick chat with you about Lotus's achievements today, Martin.
Mike, I mean, the pace was really good at the end of the race, but have you got any bits in the pipeline already to make it faster for Melbourne?
Not so much for Melbourne, but we're aiming at a very big update for Barcelona. Big new aerodynamic package, mass dampers, a lot of the things that we've been, weren't able to do just because of time. So we always said we had to get here and make it reliable, and we'd work from there. So great platform to work from.
Mike, Eddie, the word glutton for punishment comes to mind when I'm talking to you. God knows, sir, the teams that you've been in, the startups, and now you're at Lotus. This is a painful project, but nevertheless hugely rewarding, I would expect.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually personally never felt sort of, enjoyed a project so much or felt so much reward from just working with a group of people. And it reminds me, of working at Tyrrell, actually, where we had such a good spirit, and when we were at Jordan and, punching above our weight. So I'm getting a little old for it. I'll have to go off sailing sometime soon. But, no, fantastically rewarding.
Mike, it's DC. You refer to your 2 drivers there affectionately as a couple of twits. They've both got reasonable experience in Formula One. This is clearly going to be, a repeat scenario where you're going to have some trying weekends as the year goes on. Do you think they've both psychologically got the energy and patience to deal with that? You know, obviously from Jarno's point of view, who can't hear me at the moment, he's not as fresh as Kovalainen.
No, I think they do. I mean, we've got to give them a quicker car. You know, David, that you get motivated if you think you can start racing people. So, it's my job to make sure we give them a quicker car, and also they'll be racing each other. As you know, the biggest challenge is your teammate, and they'll push each other on. So, but they get on very well together with the whole team. I think at the moment they're relishing the whole project, but they'll need a quicker car to stay interested for sure.
OK, Mike, go off and enjoy the party and tell Tony he looks great in green and yellow if he wants to get more involved in Norwich City.
I'll tell him that.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Congratulations. Well done, Mike.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you, everyone.
And let's have a quick mention, actually, about the new teams. Before the weekend, all the talk was about the safety aspect and whether you could allow a team such as Hispania Racing, who had a driver who'd never turned a wheel, in a car that had never turned a wheel, taking part in qualifying. How would you rate the success of this weekend for those three teams, Martin?
Well, I think obviously Lotus were in a different position to Hispania. They had done some testing, and I still didn't expect them to get to the end of a Grand Prix first time out. That's impressive, to say the least. I think generally it went about how you would expect, but what surprised me is towards the end when you saw Kovalainen doing 2:02s and the leaders doing 2 minutes on a very, the longest lap of the year. And in fact, I was quite gobsmacked by that pace. It was brilliant.
Perhaps that takes us back to something that Jensen mentioned in an email that we've had, actually, saying, do we want our Formula One defending world champion to be talking about not driving the car to the limit? And perhaps that's indicative of what we saw out there today.
Well, Formula One changes, the rules change, different aspects, things get serious. We also heard about qualifying becoming much more important. I'd just like to go back to the point that Martin was talking about, and that is the safety aspect of the smaller, the new teams. We have to do something about these mirrors. It's just ridiculous. You saw Mark Webber with the biggest gulf of smoke I've ever seen, and he didn't even know about it. The mirrors should be at least in a position where the young drivers and the new teams have a chance to avoid things for safety reasons. Hanging the mirrors off the end of the side pod is just nonsense.
OK, right, let's meet Martin Whitmarsh, have a chat with him for the first time this season. Martin, nice to see you. We've spoken to both of your drivers. They both said today was OK, not fantastic, but it was all right. You managed to pick up a podium, first race of the year. It's an improvement on where you were 12 months ago. How do you feel?
Well, I think it's an improvement on where we were 12 hours ago as well. I think we underperformed in qualifying, so to actually now come and race well, I think in the race itself, both guys did a good job. They had a lot of the time they had traffic, very difficult to overtake here. I guess for you guys it was a challenge to talk this show up, which was something we've got to think about. When Lewis got clear air in his second stint, then he was very quick and he was matching, if not slightly quicker than the cars in front. So that was encouraging because, frankly, yesterday we were a long way off the pace. But the team also did great stops, and I think that was good for the team actually, because obviously we managed to get leapfrog Rosberg with Lewis, so we managed to get past Mark with Jensen. So the team enjoyed that part of the day, and getting a podium is an important start. I think having reasonable race pace, but you've got to qualify well, and we didn't yesterday.
Well, the guys here are brimming with questions about the race today, but let's just quickly go back to tomorrow. When we arrived here, all of our friends here were talking about the fact that really Ferrari and McLaren looked like the fastest cars in pre-season testing. How much of a shock was it when qualifying got underway yesterday and you saw virtually a full second between yourself and the front runners?
Well, that was pretty disappointing, is the answer. I think we underperformed in qualifying. I think I personally believe we had too little downforce, so we lost out. We underreacted to the bump in turn 6. I think we believed it was going to be ground on Friday night. It wasn't, but we underreacted to that. I think the engineers felt that if they worked on the ride through that part of the circuit, we'd lose elsewhere. I'm not sure that we got that bit right. So overall, we underperformed. I think we'll be close. Well, we're definitely closer in the race, and I think we're going to be closer in Australia. But in answer to your question, yesterday afternoon, yes, it was quite a shock to us.
Martin, I'm surprised with your local contacts that you couldn't get that bump ground up. You're partly owned by the Bahrainis, but that's not my question, actually. Just coming back
they're completely impartial.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great to see. What a great advert for Bahrain. They're wonderful people.
This year, anyway.
Yeah. What you were saying about...
We're definitely going to have that bit of the circuit out for next.
Yeah. There'll be a flyover or something, a McLaren flyover. For the show, I was under the impression that there was a push between the teams to have a mandatory 2 pit stops because of concern about, without refueling, whether there'll be lulls in the race. Is there a possibility that can happen during a season? Can you all agree on that? Or is this really in the hands of Bridgestone? Do you need to push them to come up with tyres that are so marginal it forces 2 pit stops or more?
Well, I think on today's evidence we've got to do both. I think 3 teams, and we were one that said we should have mandatory 2 pit stops because we were worried about one stopping. I know Red Bull was one of them and one other. So I think we've got to re-examine that. But I think if we can now push on Bridgestone to have racier tyres, we need a super soft tyre that's really going to hurt if you try and take it to 20 laps, what people were today. You shouldn't be able to do that with a super soft tyre. And I think even the Prime, if it's a struggle to get it to do half a race distance, then you force it. And I think the tyres were much closer in the race than we expected, and they determined the spectacle. If people had to peel in, frankly, we started there was no real serious degradation of tyres. We started the roll of pit stops because we were trying to get ahead of Rosberg, and everyone started to come in at that point. But otherwise, just based on tyre degradation, we could have run till lap 25 or more on the super soft tyres. If you can do that on the softest tyre, then the prime tyres is going to be rumped through for as long as you like.
Yeah, but Martin, Bridgestone can't be the fall guys. The problem is the cars can't follow each other, which was supposed to be addressed some time ago, last year, wasn't it? But it's an aerodynamic issue more than we've had drivers sitting where you're sitting telling us they just didn't drive flat out through the race because there was no point almost. Their tyres would go away.
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of issues here. I don't think Bridgestone are the fall guys. I think we've got to work with them. I personally believe that more challenging tyres will help the spectacle of the show. I also personally believe we should have 2 stops mandated because we want to stop this. I think now, if we'd have had a safety car on lap 5, we'd have all piled in, we'd all got on the prime tyre, and we'd have gone from lap 5 to lap 49 without a stop. So that was a real danger. So I think that the tyres are allowing you to do that. I'm not trying to pass the blame. We're all in this together. I think we do need to look at mandating stops. We do need to look at the tyres and making them more fragile. We do need to work on cars that are close, that can race closer and be more easy to overtake. Unfortunately, the double diffuser, and we've all got them, has really worked against that in the last 2 years. We have got rid of it for next year, so that arguably is a year or two too late. But nonetheless, that's something we should have done. We haven't. In what can we do this year? I think it's got to be working with Bridgestone and the tyres and potentially mandating more stops in the race.
OK, Martin, thank you for joining us. Just very quickly, FOTA are committed to making racing as exciting as possible for the fans who are watching this, concerned about today.
Well, I think we all are because, let's face it, Formula One, it has to be entertaining. People have to be switched on to what is going to happen in the race. If it's processional, it's not going to be. So today was not the best show. We know that. We've all got to work together to improve it.
OK, well, one man who gave us his fair share of entertainment during his career was Jacques Villeneuve, and he's speaking with Ted Kravitz.
Well, Jacques, nice to see you as always. Now, listen, you were commentating on the race for BBC Radio 5 Live. How was it?
It was fun. You have to be careful a little bit more than when you're sitting on your couch at home and just talking with friends. But it was actually quite enjoyable, and you pay more attention to what's happening in the race.
What was your verdict on Schumacher's performance?
Very good. 3 years without racing, first race, and he's only 2 seconds behind his teammate at the end of the race. So a very good performance.
And your verdict on whether it was an entertaining Grand Prix, Jacques?
I think it was entertaining. There wasn't that much overtaking, but you could see cars getting closer to each other, then sliding a little bit, losing time a little bit once they would overheat the tires. So it was fun to watch.
It's interesting you say that, because talking to a lot of people up and down the paddock, they say actually there's a prospect for races being more boring this year with no refueling.
There wasn't overtaking with refueling. It doesn't change a thing. As long as you're dependent heavily on the aerodynamics, instead of the mechanical grip, you won't have good racing. That's all. You can do whatever you want with the stretches, with the pit stop or not. People still pitted. It didn't make a difference. The racing was as good, if not better, than last year.
Okay, interesting to get Jacques' thoughts. What about Alain Prost? Well, it looks like the man who knows just what it takes to become Formula One world champion on more than one occasion is going to get a little bit more involved in Formula One over the next few races. He's been asked to be one of the first stewards to get involved in helping the guys make decisions about the racing. He was involved today, and let's get his thoughts after today's race.
Alain, great to see you, as always. Now, you were the steward's advisor, or fourth steward here this weekend. How did you enjoy that experience?
I was steward. I was one of the stewards of the weekend. It was a motivation and a decision from Jean Todt to have from this year, if possible, one ex-race driver being part of the steward of the meeting. And I'm very proud to be the first one of the history, and it was a great experience. I can't say much more. Obviously the race was quiet, and but there's still quite a lot to do in the last 2-3 days.
What are you hoping to be able? I think you're going to do some more races throughout the season. What are you hoping to be able to add? What do you think the ex-drivers will be able to add to the stewards and their decisions?
It obviously depends of the character of the race and the incidents and what is happening, but in certain occasions, I would say it's quite good to have the vision of a ex-racing driver being able to judge that. Okay, we can see some things, but having the experience of the certain tracks and also different drivers, you can have the maybe a different opinion. What you want to avoid also is having some drivers penalized for what could be only a race incident, and also some drivers maybe not being never penalized because of other reasons. Also it's good for other stewards to be beside with drivers, because you obviously meet the people very often during the weekend. They get more experience. You can exchange the ideas. Also good for ex-drivers to see what these stewards are doing. Sometimes it's a bit boring, but you need to know the regulation quite well. You need to understand. It's good to have the two parts of the business.
Well, it's good to get Alain involved in this kind of thing. Not too much for him to worry about this weekend, but having drivers more involved in stewards' decisions, I would imagine that as a former team owner and two drivers, you are unanimously in agreement that this is a good thing.
Yeah, and we were pushing for it for years. Martin, we had a crossover in our careers, and this is something that during the Max Mosley era was always resisted against because of whatever reason. And I fail to see why a driver would be any less impartial than some random steward from a country who what they tend to do is have two additional stewards. You could have someone from Brazil and someone from Finland at this Grand Prix, for instance, and they rotate them.
That was the issue, having drivers who were so famously affiliated to a certain team. They couldn't ever be impartial making decisions.
But I think it's when you called up. It's like when you called up for jury service. You have a responsibility. It's not about who your old mates were, and you're going to take it seriously. You know that your decisions are going to be super analysed from every single angle, and so you're not going to come up with some crazy decision just because it suits your old mates. And I heard a silly thing once when we're not having drivers in there because after a few years they're going to forget what it was like. Well, they're going to forget a lot less than somebody who's never driven a racing car. And I think it's another great move from Jean Todt. I think he's done some good things since he's been in power, and that is one of the better ones.
I'm not sure if Jean Todt is going to include ex-team bosses, but maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think they're in a particularly strong position to be there, because in every team, in any team problem or a penalty, they are the ones that have to go in front of the stewards. They have to argue their case. They're familiar with the surroundings. They understand how various stewards think, operate, and come up with judgments. And from my view, I can tell you on hundreds and thousands of times possibly I've had to battle my case in front of these guys, and sometimes you come away thinking, what are they thinking about? Have they not seen the rules? So at the same time they need guidance, and I think the racing drivers here are particularly a strong position, but so are the ex-team bosses.
But everybody hates the referee, don't they?
Of course they do.
It's a thankless task.
Well, it is indeed, but I think just coming back to a point we said there about being impartial, I think Jean Todt has displayed, he's obviously spent a decade at Ferrari. If he was going to be a little bit bias, then maybe that McLaren system of the airflow, as Martin described it, a sort of letterbox in front of the car, giving us some extra speed, doing whatever fancy thing it does, stalling the air on the rear wing. Well, you know, Jean Todt probably could have given Charlie Whiting a steer. Well, clearly he stayed well out of that. But rather bizarrely, I saw in all the World Championships lined up with the new president of the FIA, he had his wife sitting there beside him. So maybe he's, certain things he's not quite so impartial.
Hey, listen, you've always got to keep the wife happy.
Well, indeed.
We all know that sitting here, don't
indeed,
we?
Yes.
And you mentioned impartiality in Ferrari and perhaps helping other teams. Ferrari don't need much help at the moment. Big celebrations for them today. And I think looking at these celebrations, it takes us back a year. The issues that Felipe had, the issues that Ferrari had, this would have been a very, very sweet day for that team because there's no excuses at Ferrari anymore.
It's a big day for Stefano Domenicali as well. He had questions to, there he is now, patting and thanking his man Alonso. But, they may not have won the race, but they did. And you have to say, from winter testing and their general pace and reliability particularly, that showed up in winter testing. They always had a great chance to win this race.
Sure, and after the race, Ted caught up with Felipe Massa.
Congratulations, second today on your comeback. Are you a happy man?
Yes, sure. I mean, I'm happy after what's happened. So I'm really happy to be back here and to fight for the race. And so I think it's a great start of the season. It was just my best start of the season, to be honest. And I'm very happy that we know how important is the points for the whole championship. So starting with second place is always really positive.
The Ferrari pace looks pretty impressive. Were there any problems out there? It didn't look like it from where we were sitting.
Well, I had a lot of problems during the race in my car, not regarding the pace, but regarding the consumption, regarding the temperature problem in the car, and also the front wing at the end. So, which made my race a lot more difficult, and I didn't have a great start. So the race was quite difficult for me, but I think we have a great pace there, but Red Bull as well has a great pace.
So in that case, if it wasn't perfect from your seat, other people should be very worried.
Yes, but we are also very worried because Sebastian had a great race. He would have won the race, in my opinion, and it's something that we need to look forward.
And Fernando Alonso was looking forward for a long time to be a driver for Ferrari. And as he crosses the finish line there, fist in the air, finger in the air, he's number one at least today. And he would love to return to his championship winning days with Renault. The celebrations are familiar, the overalls aren't, but congratulations to Fernando Alonso. There he is alongside his new teammates. And after the race, he spoke with Lee.
Fernando, congratulations. First trip out for Ferrari and your first win.
Yes, fantastic. Winning a Grand Prix is special. Winning the first Grand Prix of the season is special, and winning for Ferrari first race is special. So it's a combination of emotions that I have right now, and I want to enjoy this tonight and this next week, this victory, and hopefully we can taste it again in Australia.
You forgot about the margin in which you won as well. I mean, that was pretty impressive, the pace that you were able to pull out.
Well, I think there were three key points of the race. One, the start, that I managed to overtake Felipe. Then the problem with Vettel's car, that we've been lucky to overtake him. And then the pace of the car, all the race, that it was very, very good. We have a very good car with full tank or with no fuel. And this is one of the good characteristics, I think, of our car.
When you were sitting behind Vettel, if he hadn't had the problem, do you still think you could have got past him?
Difficult. I think we know how difficult it is to overtake in Formula One, but I was preparing the car, the tires, taking care about everything to attack in the last 10 laps for the victory. Probably was a very low chance to win the race, but I was ready to attack.
And you'll be desperate again when you get to Australia. You'll be counting the days down.
Yes, I think now with the good car that we have, I think we can enjoy races. We can enjoy the weekends, and in Australia is the next opportunity to show our potential. I'm sure that this will depend track to track. Maybe in Australia, Mercedes or McLaren, they are a little bit ahead of us. We don't know that. But we need to do a good job. We need to keep finishing in the podium if we can, and take some solid points back to home until we arrive to Europe, that maybe it's time to push a little bit harder.
There's a man who's back in the groove. Just time to pot through a few of your emails. Thank you if you've got in touch, f1@bbc.co.uk. Chris Chamberlain, is Alonso the title favourite after just one race? Well, 25 points looks impressive, doesn't it, after one win?
I thought he was the title favourite before the race. The car's been so fast, so reliable. And, I love Felipe Massa. He's a gorgeous little man, but I think he's got a challenge on his hands to match that man now for this season.
OK, talking of challenges, Josh Hobson, has Lewis got what it takes to win the championship under these new rule changes?
Well, clearly, even Martin alluded to it there. They've got a bit of work to do under qualifying. The emphasis on qualifying is so strong now that they've a bit to go to catch up with Red Bull. But they did a remarkable job last year. So, yes, Marty went for Alonso, I went for Hamilton. And I've got to stick with that. I think podium was a lucky finish for him here.
We've actually had a lot of emails coming in saying, will Sebastian Vettel be punished for running out of fuel at the end of the race? As far as people at home are concerned, they have to leave some fuel in the tanks for it to be properly analysed. David?
That's correct. You're supposed to be able to have at least a kilogram on board for analysis, and it remains to be seen whether they can, pick that last little bit of fuel out of the corner, because the best fuel pump in the world won't take the last few grams.
Yes, but you are allowed, and it has happened in my time, where you actually you can lift the car up on a slant and you can pump it out through the filters and the pipes, and you can take it out. You will find enough to give a sample for both. I promise you can do it.
Unless he switched it off so they didn't do any further damage on the in-lap, because they must have known they were burning the back of their car away.
Finally, talking about FOTA, we had Martin Whitmarsh with us, who's the chairman of FOTA, now the Formula One Teams Association. And this is a good one to all three of you, actually, I think, to wrap this up. Based on the first race of the season, the new rule changes, the new regulations, what will FOTA be taking away from this race, Martin?
Well, let's just wait and see. Let's not act too hastily, but the warning signs are out there today that they may need to do. And I was really pleased to hear Martin say, look, we might reconsider this 2 mandatory pit stops. I think that may well be the answer.
100% agree. There's the potential for it to become boring, and no one ever wants to see our sport doing that, or lack of interest, let's say. Let's not use the word boring. And the two pit
You have actually already used the word boring.
Well, I'll continue to
take
use
it back.
boring then, if you like.
Can I cut in there, because his answer was starting to bore me. If I can just cut in and say, the reason I raised that question with Martin is that the teams were talking about it before the first race. They were talking, shall we go for 2 pit stops? And ultimately, the competitive animals that they are, some of the teams didn't vote for mandatory 2 pit stops, despite the fact they know it makes a better show, because some of them felt they had a better tyre wear. So if you've got a car that you think uses its tyres in a better way, why would you? It's like a turkey voting for Christmas. So they've got to try and leave their competitive spirits at the door when they sit round the table to talk about the show. Because there's no question that more pit stops is going to spice it up. People will get more aggressive with the way they race the cars. We'll see more action in the pit, and I think that will shake up the races.
But it's never happened in the past, and it's not going to happen in the future. It needs Bernie to go to the next FOTA meeting and say, listen, guys, the people, the fans, the hundreds of millions of people watching, they deserve better. Has to be 2 stops.
But these teams love to win boring races by as big a margin as they possibly can. So if they need 100% approval to force that through, it won't happen. Because as you say, it's turkeys voting for Christmas, those that have got a haul of points and can manage their tyres, like Ferrari.
OK, and before we disappear, driver of the day, disappointment of the day. 2 words.
Vettel.
As driver.
Sauber.
As disappointment.
Oh, my God.
Should we come back to you in a moment?
Please do.
OK.
Sebastian Vettel and Sebastian Vettel's exhaust.
Without any question, now that I've thought about it, Massa,
Yes.
bearing in mind what he's been through,
Absolutely.
and the pain
Concur.
and the suffering, and I, for one, am overjoyed how competitive he was. I didn't think he could be, and that I was disappointed. Possibly in one of the new teams, they just didn't come to Formula One in a well enough prepared position.
OK, well,
no mention of Schumacher in there.
Very interesting, and actually very little mention of Michael Schumacher during this forum. I
forgot he was in the race, actually.
Strange, isn't it?
Didn't really. Nothing happened, did it?
Well, he'll be keen to
Positive
remind
or
us that he
negative?
is here, and he is still very heavily involved in Formula One when the Australian Grand Prix rolls around in 2 weeks' time. We'd love you to join us for that. Of course, you can see all of the practice on the Red Button and on the BBC Sport website, and you can see both qualifying and the race on the BBC Sport website, where you can see extra stats and facts throughout the race as well. Guys, thank you so much. First race of the year, enjoyed it? Good fun? Ready for more in a couple of weeks?
All right. I'm looking for a bit more excitement next time.
Aren't we all? Yeah, OK.
Like Schumacher, rusty.
I had a great time. Wonderful place to spend a weekend in Bahrain.
There you go. Someone's positive. All right, guys, thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much for joining us for the first F1 Forum of the new season. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
And we're away now in 2010. Alonso wins for the first time in 2010. What a start.